I cannot do the live. Is it only you can do the live?
I don't know how to do that myself, so I'm not sure. Where are you going to for that?
That should be a live button next to recording.
Okay. I'm not sure. I might have disabled that then. I didn't know that that needed to be in. I wasn't prepared for that. Sorry. I don't know.
Okay.
All I have is here. Advance. No, I don't have that option here.
But it seems to me that the same settings that would allow Create TV to live should also apply to live streaming to Facebook.
Louise just said, because I disabled the text message, I'm sorry, the chat for preventing people from chatting. So Louise just sent me a message. He said, everything sounds and looks good. Just let me know whenever you want to go live. So yeah, he was able to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who is doing live?
There is a Create TV, the San Jose cable channel.
Okay, fine.
Okay, great.
But are you able to do the live? Okay, you. Okay. Okay.
Tiffany, quick question. I'm not sure if we perform drums. I'm not sure if the mic is going to pick up all the beats perfectly. So do you want us to share audio because the sharing is disabled?
Oh, sharing. You wanted to share? What did you want to share? Sorry, I did. I'll go ahead and change it to multiple participants.
Mr. Adhiyaman and myself will be performing the Parai music. So if I do it...
Krishna, I have a question here to Karthik. Is that I'm seeing Manivan.
I'm sorry, I saying what? Sorry. I be sharing now, so you should be able to share. But I'm sorry, share screen. That's what I mean. But yeah, I had that concern as well too. But could you guys test it out? சமன் செய்து சீர்தூக்கும் தராசு போல் செயல்பட வேண்டியதே ஊடக அறம். தமிழ் மொழி ஊடக புலத்தில் இவ்வரத்தை நிலைநாட்ட புறப்பட்டுள்ளது அமெரிக்க தமிழ் வானொலி. வணிக நோக்கற்ற முழுமையான தன்னார்வ ஊடகமாக செயல்படுவதால் இந்த ஊடக அறத்தை நாங்கள் என்றும் காப்பாற்றுவோம் என்ற நம்பிக்கையும் மன உறுதியும் எங்களுக்கு இருக்கிறது. எங்களுடைய பண்பாட்டு அடையாளங்களையும் அன்றாட சர்வதேச நிகழ்வுகளையும் எந்தவித பாரபட்சமும் இன்றி அரசியல் சார்பற்ற நிலையில் மக்களுக்கு
உள்ளதை உள்ளபடியாக எடுத்துரைக்கும் நோக்கில் அமெரிக்க மண்ணிலிருந்து மக்களால் மக்களுக்காக உருவாக்கப்படுகிறது அமெரிக்க தமிழ் வானொலி. எங்கள் மண்ணுக்காய், எங்கள் மக்களுக்காய், எங்கள் மொழிக்காய், எங்கள் பண்பாட்டு அடையாளங்களுக்காய் அமெரிக்க மண்ணிலிருந்து மக்களால் மக்களுக்கான வானொலியாய் வலம் வர இருக்கிறது அமெரிக்க தமிழ் வானொலி. தமிழ் எங்கள் மூச்சு. 4வது வருடத்தை கழித்து 5வது ஆண்டில் காலடி எடுத்து வைக்கின்றது அமெரிக்க தமிழ் ஊடகம் மற்றும் அமெரிக்க தமிழ் வானொலி. எம்மையும் எங்கள் முயற்சிகளையும் அரவணைத்து எம்முடன் பயணித்துக் கொண்டிருக்கும் உங்கள் அனைவருக்கும் எங்கள் இதயம் கனிந்த நன்றிகள். அமெரிக்க தமிழ் ஊடகம் அமெரிக்க தமிழர்களின் நம்பிக்கையை பெற்றிருக்கின்றது என்று நாங்கள் பெரிதும் மகிழ்ச்சி அடைகின்றோம். கொரோனா தொற்று நோயால் முடங்கி போயிருக்கும் இந்த வேளையில் எங்களுடைய வானொலியும் வலைக்காட்சியும் தமிழர்களுக்கென்று தேவையான பல்வகை நிகழ்ச்சிகளை ஒருங்கிணைத்து வழங்கியிருக்கின்றது. இவை அனைத்திலும் எங்களுடைய உழைப்பையும் ஊதியத்தையும் செலவழித்திருக்கிறோமே தவிர எங்களுக்கு எந்தவித வணிக நலமும் இல்லை. அறம் வலுவாமல் சமரசங்கள் செய்து கொள்ளாமல் ஊடக அறத்துடன் செயல்பட்டு கொண்டிருக்கின்றோம் நாங்கள். மேலும் வாழ்வாதாரம் இழந்த எத்தனையோ இசைக்கலைஞர்களுக்கு எங்கள் நிகழ்ச்சிகள் மூலம் நன்கொடை திரட்டி அளித்திருக்கின்றோம். தமிழ் இளைஞர்களை கொண்டு பல நல்ல விழிப்புணர்வு நிகழ்ச்சிகளை தயாரித்து வழங்கியிருக்கின்றோம் என்பது இன்னொரு நற்செய்தி. இவை அனைத்தும் வெற்றிகரமாக நடத்த காரணமாயிருக்கும் நேயர்களாகிய உங்களுக்கு எங்கள் நன்றி கலந்த வணக்கங்கள். இது அமெரிக்க தமிழ் வானொலி. தமிழ் எங்கள் மூச்சு. www.americantamilradio.com என்ற இணையதளத்தினூடாக அமெரிக்க மண்ணிலிருந்து உலகின் மூத்த மொழிக்கு முடிசூட்டு விழா. இது அமெரிக்க தமிழ் வானொலி. தமிழ் எங்கள் மூச்சு.
The what?
Can we start I'm just asking whether we can start the drumming.
Just one moment. I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead. Yes. Sorry. Yes, you can. So, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to go ahead and start our performance of drums tonight.
Before that, can you please disable the
Yes, thank
sound
you.
when people are joining? It is always giving a, so you have to actually mute them.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, so right now it should be only the co-hosts that are able to unmute themselves now.
Yeah, first I think Adiman and Arul playing, then the Mani's group playing.
No, Karthik, we have Darshana playing, Darshana and myself.
Oh, fine. Yeah, not Arul.
It's
Oh,
Darshana
sorry.
to start, yeah.
Yeah. I think your background is so bright, so you are so on the
Is it?
shadows.
Alrighty, I'll just try to change it.
Oh, okay. Yes. Here we go. Okay.
Good evening, everybody, and I'm Darshana. I have learned Parai music from Mr. Adiman here, who's my teacher, and I've learned it only for like a couple of months. So I'm happy to perform here. Thanks for the opportunity. And here we go.
No, not able to hear her. No, we can't hear her.
Darshana, we are not able to hear it.
Darshana,
I'm sorry, Dashna, we're unable to hear you. Sorry, you're too far away from the camera. Can you come closer, maybe?
no, you are not unmuted. Darshana.
No, unmute Darshana.
Oh, okay, wait. So I think we have to do Darshana.
Am I muted?
No, now you're good.
You're fine now.
Now we can hear you. Yeah.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, now.
Yes,
now it's okay.
If
Yeah.
you stay close to the camera, we can hear you.
Okay, then let me.
Thank you.
No, we can hear you. Last time, actually, you were muted. The old place also good. The fine.
Okay,
Yeah, good.
it's good. Okay, thank you.
Are you able to hear?
I cannot hear.
Well, thank you so much for this lovely performance. Yeah, thank you so much. It was so lovely. Thank you. Sorry, we're running out of time. Unfortunately, we have to. We're unable to hear you clearly. So we hope to enjoy your performance another time. Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to give me just one moment, everyone. Hi there. Let's see here. No spotlight and spotlight. Okay, let's see. Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Tiffany Garcia, and I'm a librarian at the San Jose Public Library. So today we will be going live on streaming on Facebook as well as on Korea TV. So we are going to be keeping everyone on mute today, just to make sure that everyone can hear our guest speakers. We have many of them tonight. And let's see here, what else? Let's see here. So tonight we are partnering with the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Legacy Committee to commemorate the 92nd birthday anniversary of Dr. King, by remembering his real legacy and considering how he would have responded to this critical inflection point in our history with the question he once posed, where do we go from here? And his call to move from chaos to community. And we have the pleasure of having many guest speakers tonight to commemorate King's work and to talk about the current challenges we face. And now I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic to our San Jose Public Library Deputy Director, Michelle Ornat.
Thank you for the introduction, Tiffany. Hello, everyone, and welcome, and thank you so much for joining the San Jose Public Library in our first ever virtual program to celebrate Dr. King's birthday and remember his legacy. Today's program would not have been made possible without the support from our partner, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Legacy Committee. Thank you for being part of this program and for organizing such an amazing group of community leaders to speak to this evening. Every year, the San Jose Public Library offers programs and events for people of all ages. Whether they are discussions for adults or creative programs for children, we provide these interactive opportunities because we understand the important contributions Dr. King has made to the American Civil Rights Movement and to our history. Today, the teachings of Dr. King hold true more than ever. Our staff works diligently to help inform and educate the public by providing not only programs and events, but also an extensive collection of both physical and digital materials related to Dr. King's life, activism, teachings, and achievements. Currently, we have more than 830 items and over 250 unique titles for all ages across all platforms. At the beginning of 2020, the library formed its first racial equity group. Part of the mission and purpose of this group is to create an environment that is welcoming and inclusive for all individuals It brings people together, builds communities, and enriches lives. As your public library, we stand with all people, regardless of color, background, and immigration status, and we invite our communities to utilize our services, join us in deepening our understanding of racism and systemic inequity, and reflect on the ways in which we can each contribute towards creating a more just and equal community. Now, please join me in welcoming Dr. Sharat G. Lin, co-chair of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Legacy Committee and San Jose Peace and Justice Center and Human Agenda.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle. It's a great pleasure to be here once again, to welcome all of you, and to this what would be the 96th or the 92nd birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So I'm one of the co-chairs of the Dr. Martin Luther King Legacy Committee that was founded by Dr. Oscar Battle many years ago to celebrate in conjunction with the King Library the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King, which has been almost an annual event ever since then. And I just do want to thank again the San Jose Public Library for extending us this opportunity to use their online platform and for hosting this event. Secondly, I want to acknowledge the co-sponsors of this event, San Jose Silicon Valley NAACP, the Ambedkar King Study Circle, Human Agenda, San Jose Peace and Justice Center, San Jose Roll Call, San Jose Strong, Siren, that is Services, Immigrant Rights and Education Network, and the American Tamil Media. In addition, so this year, Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday comes at an historic point in our history as we face a violent and hateful challenge to this nation's fabric, probably the greatest challenge since slavery, as seen in DC on January the 6th. And this comes just 4 years after the Barack Obama, the first Black president, completed his second term. It also comes on top of an unprecedented and unrelenting 7 months of Black Lives Matter protests following the death of George Floyd. All of this in the midst of an unprecedented pandemic that has really not only hit our economy, but exploded inequality in this country, with the poor getting poorer and the rich having this surge in income, which was really surprising. So it is fitting that we ask the question, as Dr. King did in his book, "Where do we go from here? Chaos or community?" Now, in celebrating Dr. King's birthday, we also want to educate to reclaim his real and radical legacy. The Dr. King that is portrayed at by the National Park Service at the King National Historical Park in Atlanta, for example, or in school books, is largely a whitewashed Dr. King, a king of "I have a dream" and a king of nonviolence. Of course, he was both. He did have a dream, and he was absolutely committed to nonviolence. But he was much more than that, right? Because he stood. If you look at his speeches, and I read, speech after speech, we see that he had this very, very deep commitment to struggling against injustice. And he realized, and it took him some time. Over his life, he was just like any other human being, developing his ideas until he towards the last few years of his life, he realized that the problems that we have in this country of racism, inequality, militarism, violence, that these are all structural. And so he said in his Beyond Vietnam speech at the Riverside Church on April 4th, 1967, that a true revolution of values will soon cause us to question the fairness and justice of many of our past and present policies. One day we must come to see that the whole Jericho Road must be transformed so that men and women will not be constantly beaten and robbed as they make their life's journey on life's highway. True compassion is more than flinging a coin to a beggar. It comes to see that an edifice that produces beggars needs restructuring. So he was saying then, towards the end of his life, exactly the same thing that the Black Lives Matter protests today are saying, that we need a structural change in this country in order to solve these problems. And we need to come face to face with the racism, the legacy of slavery, and excoriate it from our core in order to put racism behind us once and for all. We have a lot of work to do ahead. So anyway, there are some very hopeful trends that are coming up. One is a new generation of leadership in the new Black Lives Matter organizations that have come up after the death of George Floyd. Secondly, is the young people who have been coming up and running for office, for public office. And these are the two most hopeful trends that we have seen in the midst of the pandemic. And so that's what we're going to focus on, and that's what will define the themes of tonight. So with that, the first person I'd like to invite is Mary Celestin. Mary Celestin is the founder of San Jose Strong, a grassroots organization to reinvent San Jose for and by the community. Through a pioneering vision, San Jose Strong has created an amazing online platform and social media outreach to connect the community to a vast array of resources that are especially important in this time of pandemic and economic displacement. San Jose Strong is one of the many Black Lives Matter organizations that have risen in the last year to spearhead the struggle against racism and hate and for equity and inclusion. So, Mary?
Is Mary under, Mary, I just want to make sure before I give them a privilege. Is that Mary?
Are you there, Mary?
I'm not seeing her. Is she here? Okay, there she, oh, it's Mary J. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, it's at replace spotlight. There we go. I see you. I'm going to unmute you now. Sorry about that, Mary. Let's see here.
All good. I was like trying to say hello. You can't hear me.
I can see you. I apologize. Feel free. Okay.
But yes, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really honored to speak with all of you. A little bit about me. I'm a senior engineering major at Harvey Mudd College, and as was introduced, I'm the founder of San Jose Strong. It's really been an honor to build this organization since the summer and just see the awesome community members come together and make it a reality. I wanted to take this time and to honor this event by reading a spoken word that I wrote in 2018. I've presented it a couple times, so maybe a few people here have heard it before, but I really felt like it rang true in 2020 and wanted to speak that to all of you. So I hope you can enjoy. This spoken word is titled, I Am a Person. I am just a person with ambition, a person with struggle, a person who dreams. And last night I dreamt that I was skating with my friends, coasting, cruising, we swerved in and out of lanes, mind playing games, but not in our head, in our souls instead, games endless in nature, possibilities rushing past us like leaves in the wind. But my dream took a turn as I swerved too fast, driving past my friends' kaleidoscope vision, my distorted board twisted into the path of fast-moving cars. The people in the cars did not see me as I moved out the way, but they did see my shadow, a shadow stark enough to warrant one slow halt and consequent spit upon the asphalt. Trash I was, and reckless too, just like the rest of them, a dangerous fool. As this man in his car who knew no more than a shadow of an inkling of my being belittled me, seeing the situation, another man situated himself into the conversation. Stop this, he exclaimed. She knows not what she does. Her circumstance instills ignorance, plus she is just a girl. A girl with no tools, you fool, you know not what you do, for projecting her smart enough to repel the repugnance of the roughness of her economic status. Back and forth the two bickered, bantering over shadows as the sun began to set, and I stood there bewildered and stoic, cool as the crisp wind upon which I had dreamed but a minute prior, tired, but I dared not sit, sweat beginning to perspire until the two men's aggression grew stark enough to warrant a consequent explosion. Enough, I boomed. I am not a statistic. I am a person with ambition whose wind-covered visions are engineer-tinted. I work every day to better the conditions of those less fortunate through education and infrastructure. I am smart. I am determined. Yes, I am a person with ambition, a person with struggle, who struggled to skate for years before I received the board I ride today, a board my grandma gifted me for my 13th birthday. A grandma for which I have an alarm that rings every Sunday night telling me to call, despite the fact between us lies a wall, for she's been dead these 4 years, dead from a condition we call cancer that in addition afflicted my mother when I was 11. Now I know how to expect the worst, for it was the Great Recession, and I knew that if stocks could change in a day, so could one's fortune. I am not a dangerous fool nor a girl with no tools. I am just a person with ambition, a person with struggle, a person who dreams. I am not a statistic, for poor is not synonymous with Black, and just because my conditions do not match your expectations, it doesn't mean my personhood should lack visibility in your eyes. I am sorry you're so deprived of the beautiful diversity in this world, for if I am just a person with dreams, struggles, and ambitions, I find it hard not to assume, let alone not presume, that everyone is a person like me and you, with dreams, struggles, and ambitions too. With that, I picked up my board and I skated into the distant. Persistent to leave those men behind, heaven sent, I refound my friends and we resumed our skating. Coasting, cruising, we swerved in and out of lanes, mind-playing games, but not in our head, in our souls instead, games endless in nature, possibilities rushing past us like leaves in the wind. Thank you. I think that's my time.
Thank you so much, Mary. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And it's really a treat to, I was expecting a speech, but instead to get some art. That's beautiful. Thank you. I'm wondering whether we actually had some other drummers who were originally to perform, and I'm wondering whether, Tiffany, whether we can switch over to them for just a few minutes and then come back to the speeches.
We can certainly try. I don't know if we'll have success because of the situation we had. Unfortunately, it wasn't working properly. But what is the drummer's name?
Karthik, can you?
Garthy.
Can you let them in? I don't know who needs to be unmuted.
Yeah.
The username I need to know.
Yeah. I asked them to unmute.
Okay.
So Mani, இப்போ நீங்க unmute பண்ணிக்கலாம்.
Oh, here we go.
Hello?
Yes. Okay, there we go. Hi there.
மணி கேக்குது, நீங்க ஆரம்பிக்கலாம்.
சரியா தம்பி வாங்க.
வீடியோ ஆன் பண்ணிக்கோங்க.
சரியா.
So this is this is a sort of an Indian drum, which is traditionally played in the
ஆரம்பிச்சு.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mani? I think it's fine. You can switch. Thank you.
Sorry, we have to continue. Thank you so much. That was lovely. Thank you. And we were able to hear them. Thank you. Do we have, Sharat, do we have our next speaker? Is it Marcelia? Hi, Marcelia?
Hi, yes, Maricela?
Yes, hi
Yes.
there.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
That's okay.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for, are you gonna introduce me or should I just start?
Yeah, go ahead and start. I'm sorry. Sharat is probably busy right now. Sorry about that.
No problem. My name is Maricela Gutierrez, and I am the Executive Director of SIREN, which is Services Immigrant Rights and Education Network. We're an immigrant and refugee rights organization located in San Jose, and also we have an office in Fresno. So before we get started, just briefly take a look around our Zoom call. There's a lot of beauty and strength that are joining us here tonight, and family, and I'm really honored to be here because it's been such a difficult time for all of us. And it gives me strength now more than ever to be in community with you all and to see the diversity of the faces on this call and throughout the community that we're building. And as we reflect on the legacy of Dr. King's life, we were confronted last week by violent white supremacists that stormed our nation's capital. And it's important to ask ourselves, what does freedom and liberation look like for immigrants and refugees in this country? At SIREN, we are crystal clear that freedom for all must not come at the expense of others. And there's no doubt about our vision in liberation that immigrant justice can only be achieved when we have a country committed to racial justice and unity. Our liberation will require us to center Blackness and to fervently fight against anti-Blackness. This means standing in support and in solidarity with our Black brothers and sisters in the fight for liberation as they continue to pave the way for a better future for all of us. This will require us to come together unapologetically to confront and dismantle white supremacy. How will we do this? Our answer is to organize, organize, organize. We must commit to building a multiracial justice society and confront white supremacy when we change the structures that uphold a law enforcement system that is stealing our Black brothers and sisters and our Indigenous brothers and sisters. It has been beautiful to witness the community building that is happening here in San Jose, and we must continue to nurture, love, and water this collective vision of liberation. And as we work together towards this beautiful vision of collective freedom and liberation as a reality, our message to our immigrant community cannot be that you are essential and deportable. That is a contradiction. It should be a message that your home is here and you are here to stay. We must work towards a permanent and full protections for all immigrants that leads to citizenship. We must work towards shutting down all detention centers and freeing the families and the children that remain separated and detained. And we must continue to work towards defunding ICE, CBP, and the police. We must remove all the bans keeping refugees from seeking protections and safety and be reunited with their loved ones. Thus, we must continue to call to an end to the Muslim ban and the Africa ban. Our liberation requires a deep sense of love and justice for our communities to thrive, heal, and grow in order for us to truly be free. Dr. King said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." In 2021, let's write our own stories that will lead to liberation and dignity and respect for all Black people, immigrant communities and refugee communities, transgender and queer communities, and marginalized communities, so that one day our children and their children can show up in this world and be their true full selves. Let's work together towards turning the tide towards justice and build a movement of love and justice. Sí se puede. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Maricela. Si se puede. I apologize that I couldn't introduce you because I was not able to unmute myself. But I just want to say that one of the things I have watched, Siren over the years, and I've seen how under Maricela's leadership, how Siren has become transformed from basically a service organization for undocumented immigrants to an organization that is a very active advocate for transformation of the immigration system in this country, and so that is something I really applaud when an organization can transform itself into something that will really drive for the future, not just serving for the present, but driving for the future. Thank you so much. The next speaker is Lucila Chavez, and Lucila is a co-founder of San Jose Roll Call. She was born and raised in San Jose. She's a 27-year-old social worker for a local housing first organization. Roller skating has been a passion for her all her life. Recently, her leadership has been acknowledged by the Knight Foundation as a K880 Emerging City Champion, as well as a member of the Community Advocate Leadership Academy. She has many community-based projects in San Jose, but we'll focus on San Jose Roll Call tonight. Now, I will say this, that I invited San Jose Roll Call because it has a different origin in terms of its involvement in social justice and Black Lives Matter, because it was founded many years ago as San Jose Skate Night, a group of people just who want to go around and skate together and have fun. But this group realized that there was a very critical social justice issue and racism was existing here, and they had to act. So welcome, Lucila. You're on.
Okay, there we go. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for the introduction. So my name is Lucila Chavez. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. So first, we acknowledge that the original stewards of this land are the people of Muwekma Ohlone, as well as respecting that the BLM movement has empowered all of us locally and millions across. We were formerly known as San Jose Skate Night. Originally, we created Skate Night to call out the lack of safe space for roller skaters and utilize the empty spaces for our struggling downtown. Our evolution has gone through impromptu roller rinks to social gatherings that toured the nightlife, and then to an exercise type of gathering where we skated several miles around downtown and surrounding neighborhoods. We hope the success of Aloha Roller Rink and built lots of communities along the way. Unfortunately, even before the pandemic, our organization energy for Skate Night was getting stale. Organizing solely for social space was unfulfilling and draining. The pandemic shut it down even further, and we ceased the events. When the protests arrived, we attended as many protests in South Bay cities as we could, often on skates or bikes because that's our life. We attended because we wanted to stand in solidarity with the shared values, but also to be educated in the knowledge that we lacked. We noticed that much of the protests lacked equipment to amplify what the speakers had to say and for them to reach the massive crowds that attended. As our mobile community was already familiar with mobile sound, we started to attend these protests in service with our speakers set up to help these young speakers feel supported and heard. We were able to amplify their voices with our speaker stroller and assist any way we could with our wheels. At least we were helping young leaders practice society's big fear of public speaking, such as what I'm doing. As a call from Skate Fantasy from Atlanta in July, we brought back our power and organization of the streets in the name of Black Lives Matter as a worldwide rollout that we had. We skated the streets and informed people of our city the issues and our stance. The local community supported it so much that we had to continue the momentum. Ultimately, we realized that because of the pandemic and the injustices of America, we needed to transform all of our spaces into intentional, impactful gatherings rather than merely social gatherings. That is when we went from being called San Jose Skate Night to San Jose Roll Call. We wanted to make it transparent that we were rolling with a purpose, rolling in solidarity to celebrate and to acknowledge the contribution of Black subculture with roller skating. We started to align with the hard work our local activists were doing and wanted to use our platform to amplify their message even further. Since the protests were often fueled with contention, it made some people afraid to attend and engage. Even for us, fighting every week for months on end was taking its toll. We needed a space to celebrate, educate, and empower our newfound community. Our roll calls practice small civil disobedience and organization in community embracing way. Under the guise of cuteness, we shut down intersections to protect one another and allow our group to pass protected and unharmed. If they injure one of us, they'll have to injure many of us. We take to the streets with unity. We protect one another amongst all kinds of wheels. We become a community demonstration of what care and protection looks like with your neighbors. With our community demographic, we introduced an all wheels welcome approach and invited skateboarders, bicyclists, and scooters together to take to the streets in solidarity with the BIPOC community. With this mentality, we got together to take care of one another during the rollouts, such as having a bike brigade to assist with traffic, streets medics to provide first aid to fallen skaters, skate mechanics to assist with faulty roller skates, and inviting guest speakers to educate people during the rest stops. With that said, as roller skates started to sell out during the COVID pandemic, it is important for people to know how roller rinks for the Black community in the 1950s played an important role in the civil rights movement. When trends like this, such as roller skating, happen, it indirectly takes credit away from the source that allowed for roller skating to survive. So follow our page and we continue to go in depth about the history of that. So with Roll Call, we provide a space for people to learn more about the culture, about this culture and the issues that are pertaining to San Jose, and to inform people about the organizations that are showing up and making an impact in San Jose. And we aim to normalize social justice conversations in social settings. So we invite guest speakers, such as your guys' selves, to be able to share their knowledge during our rest stops. We are always in search of speakers, and we open up the mic to anyone who would like to share their input of what they feel or have experienced during this movement. Please look out for us in the streets and see us as people, not obstacles for your cars. So please email us. We would love to have one of you guys during our rollouts. Bring your bikes if you can't roller skate blade or skateboard or scooter. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Lucila. So whoever wants to join, I think it's every Thursday night, right?
Yeah, so Thursdays, every week on Thursdays, we meet at City Hall. First Saturdays of the month, we take to the streets and we meet at City Hall as well.
Thursdays are for beginners.
Thursdays are for beginners because we're stationed there. So we meet there at 7 to 9 p.m. And every first Saturdays, we take to the street. So follow us on Instagram at SJ Roll Call to get more information on that, because I'm saying it too fast.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for inviting me, or us.
So the next speaker is Tamara Hall. And Tamara Hall is a founder of Teachers Empowering Youth Activists, or TEYA, which seeks to empower youth and anti-racist with anti-racist lessons and social justice oriented community projects, and to support other teachers in carrying out this mission. Tamara is a special education teacher in the San Jose Unified School District and ran in last November's election for the San Jose Unified School District Board. And I met her at numerous Black Lives Matter protests over the summer, and realized that she was one of a number of very promising young people who were of color, who were running for office, and really represent a tremendous hope for transforming power, at least locally. And that's where we have to start, is taking power locally. So Tamara, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, thank you so much, Sharat, for that introduction. And I am so happy to be here, so inspired, and I'm just really excited to hear from all the different people and the representation here in San Jose. And as was mentioned earlier, Martin Luther King Jr. Was definitely a person who believed in the civil disobedience, also in Black power, and in the economic and racial justice of Black people. So as an educator myself, as a special education teacher, and as an equity leader at Dartmouth Middle School here in San Jose, that's something that really has been at the forefront of my life. And in order for us to really be comfortable in the future that will come before us, we really have to think about what are we doing for the young minds of today? How are we preparing them to lead the future of our nation, of the world, right? So that is something that led me and my colleagues and other community members to form TEA Teachers Empowering Youth Activists. That's something that has led me to be a special education teacher and really support the most vulnerable students and support the most vulnerable families and empower them to be change makers in their community. And as a person who ran for office, that's another thing that I believe Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would have did actually advocate for Black people taking up key positions of power and advocating for the prosperity of the Black community, right? And I think that's something he said in 1967. The theme of our event here is his book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, right? So that is something that he said then, and I think it rings true still today, that as Maricela mentioned, we need to center Black people and Black lives. San Jose Strong does that. There's lots of organizations that are doing that, that have been doing that for a long time, specifically the NAACP here in the Silicon Valley and African American Community Service Agency. Those are other organizations that people should definitely be aware of, contribute to financially, please, as well as support them in promoting the events that are going on and connecting them to the people in need in the community. I think something that here in Silicon Valley we definitely need to address is the economic disparity, right? So not just address it, calling it out, but address it by advocating for programs, by supporting our unhoused neighbors that are all over San Jose, and Martin Luther King also mentioned this in his book, that we will have to have some federally funded mandated program that will ultimately support our most vulnerable people, the people who are impoverished disproportionately, Black people and Latinx people and people of color. And in order for that to happen, we need the city of San Jose, as well as other people here in the Bay Area, to invest in that, right? To support these people. It's not something that we do because it is something that we are going to reap the benefits of financially. It's something that we do because that is a small price to pay for a valuable future, right? For a future that that values dignity, that values kindness, and it's something that we can start today. And if we were to support these things in San Jose, support these decision-making processes that allow for funding for the elimination of inequity financially in the communities of color, as well as bring and elevating people who are working multiple jobs and some people who are living in their cars. I think that's something we definitely need to push for. And we need to model that decision-making for the young people. And as a teacher, my students are concerned and they're scared. Some of them don't understand what's going on in light of what happened at the Capitol a week ago. And in addition to the Black Lives Matter protests and the constant police brutality to the Black community and Black people, to the suppression of Black triumph, right, over the oppressive and system that we've had to endure. So that's something that definitely we need to put our time, our money, and our power into. So as a member of TEA, as a member of San Jose Strong, as a member of the San Jose Unified Equity Coalition, I urge you all to get mobilized and support these community organizations that will eliminate the inequities here in San Jose. in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King. I think those of you who have been educating yourselves and reflecting within, you need to start doing the work. And that's something that a lot of people have been doing for many, many years, and we need to balance out that work. And it can't be only on the shoulders of the people of, that are supporting from the Black Power movement and the Civil Rights movement. And it can only be people of color. It has to be people who are aware of the problem today and who can continue to put in the efforts and the money to support the challenges that we're facing, but also to make sure that there is a sustainable system to support communities that are vulnerably and disproportionately harmed. So thank you so much again for having me be here. And I just want to end with, and I know someone mentioned that quote earlier, that, in order for us to drive out hate, we have to love, right? And Martin Luther King said as well that love is like the enactment of making sure that we are eradicating injustice and using power to do that, right? We are making sure that we are loving each other so much that we are using our power to eradicate injustice. So please love yourself and love your families and love, all of humankind, and love everyone by using and leveraging whatever power you have to eradicate injustice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamara. That's beautiful. Yes, love will drive out hate. Our next speaker is Professor Scott Myers-Lipton.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Professor Scott Myers-Lipton is a professor in the Department of Sociology at San Jose State University, and among the most persistent faculty voices promoting social justice and equity on campus and in the community. Scott is well known for his mentorship of the Poverty Under the Stars, elevating the urgent need to eliminate the causes of poverty and inequality in our society. And most recently, he has been a driving force behind the Silicon Valley Pain Index, put out by San Jose State University's Human Rights Institute, newly founded, which quantifies the growing poverty and inequality in Silicon Valley, which, by the way, is probably represents the world's greatest concentration of wealth in these tech companies. Inequality in Silicon Valley, and demands that the systemic policy changes needed to remedy these issues. Scott?
Yes, thank you very much. So as was said, I'm a professor at San Jose State, and where I teach a class on social action. And you've all probably heard around the minimum wage campaign. That was an idea my students had and brought to San Jose, which raised the minimum wage. They've been involved in these campaigns, and they've won over 15 campaigns. So I'm really, always amazed by their social justice passion. I also teach a class on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So I'm very committed to King's vision, and I consider myself a Kingian. So Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would have turned 92 years old today. Much has changed in these United States since he was so violently taken from us in 1968. And as I tell my students, not that long ago, I was 9 years old when that happened, but much remains the same. And while all Americans should be proud of the gains made toward racial justice since the late 1960s, it is painfully clear to see by the January 6 events that happened in the nation's capital that white supremacy still has a powerful hold on many Americans and still is a threat to our democracy. We celebrate Dr. King's birthday each year since his life's work provides the nation and the world a way out of the chaos of white supremacy and toward the beloved community offered by a multi-ethnic, multiracial democracy. But for Dr. King, the beloved community was blocked by racism and economic exploitation, which he saw as interconnected. King stated, quote, "A nation that will keep a people in slavery for 244 years will thingify them and make them things, and therefore they will exploit them and poor people generally economically." For King, racism and economic exploitation were part of the structures of society that were enacted out through various institutions. That is the political, the economic, the educational system, family, criminal justice, and so forth. And they created a pattern, or what he called a curious formula. For King, this curious formula goes back to the writing of the Constitution in 1787, where a Black person was defined as 60% of a human being when determining taxation and representation. According to King, this initial principle led to a curious formula where Blacks received 1/2 the good things in life and 2 times the bad when compared to whites. This curious formula was the reality in 1968 when King was murdered. And sadly, it is the reality today in these United States, and more specifically here in Silicon Valley. And while there are probably not many in Silicon Valley who would support the violent actions taken this past week by white extremist organizations in DC, institutionalized racism still dominates. This curious formula still dominates most of our institutions in Santa Clara County. So as was mentioned, I'm the author of the Silicon Valley Pain Index. And a few days ago, we released an infographic highlighting the curious formula's consistent pattern. Whatever institution you look at, the curious formula remains. Blacks and other people of color receive 1/2 the good things in life and 2 times the bad. Unfortunately, because of time constraints, it's not possible to show the 9-slide infographic, but you can view it at SV Pain Index or at SJ Spotlight. And I'll just click this right here. So I just put those up and you can see them there if you would like to actually look at the 9-slide infographic, as well as an article I wrote about this. But here are just a few statistics that demonstrates King's curious formula right here in Santa Clara County. Average per capita income for Blacks, $41,000 in Santa Clara County. So, the 2 times rule would be whites would receive about 2 times, and that's what they receive, $83,000. Whites living in poverty, 5.6%. What's 2 times the bad of that? Around 12%. That's exactly what it is, 12.7% for African Americans. White kids who don't complete high school, 4.5%. Times that by 2 and add a little bit more, 14.9% for Black children who don't complete high school. And this is consistent, whatever institution you look at or structure, this curious formula exists. So we released this infographic, and it's all in color. So you get to see Martin King in color rather than black and white. It's quite dynamic. It makes it much more real, I think, for particularly our young folks to see him in color. And our hope of doing that and to provide this curious formula, this way to think about it in a structural term is that Silicon Valley residents and businesses and nonprofits and governments and policymakers will examine our institutions and do everything they can to eliminate the curious formula. As King would say, the whole structure must be changed. And he would say that the choice is between chaos or community. The choice is still ours. The question is, how do we implement the choice of community? I believe, and this is really key right now during this time of this white supremacist insurrection, I believe we have to develop a large-scale educational program that focuses on democratic values and critical thinking so our fellow citizens become less vulnerable to cults, QAnon, for example, and the anti-democratic lies. White supremacist ideology will take time to root out as is part of the DNA of this nation, but we have to start, and it has to be a massive effort. At the same time, for those that continue to engage in white supremacist actions that are violent, we need to put those folks in prison. The choice is theirs. In addition, we need to eliminate the institutionalized racism that operates in Silicon Valley that creates the curious formula. King's solution was to abolish poverty through a guaranteed income at middle class levels, a massive public works program for anyone who wanted to work could get a job, and building 5 million low-income housing units. I've supported all those ideas. I've worked on them personally, but my belief right now is the best way to restructure society in Silicon Valley is through a reconstruction and rehabilitation fund. To make this a reality, a group of community members are proposing a bold vision, which has 3 demands. The first demand is to develop a $1 billion plus Silicon Valley reconstruction and rehabilitation fund to provide money to overcome the historic and current white supremacist practices in home ownership and to support the creation and expansion of Black, Indigenous, and people of color businesses. Currently, we're exploring ways to compel corporations in our community, banks, and venture capital firms to provide this $1 billion that we feel a need for. The second demand is for Silicon Valley corporations and the banks and the venture capitalist firms to commit to no less than 40% of their executive leadership and management be Black, Indigenous, and people of color. In Santa Clara County, 68% are BIPOC, 68%, but corporate leadership is overwhelmingly white. Oracle just released its numbers. Out of 144 executives and senior managers, 80% white, 89% male. Has to be changed. And the third demand is for Silicon Valley venture capital firms and banks to make no less than 10% of their available capital for investment in BIPOC, startup, and scale-worthy businesses. The Payne Index shows that 1% of Silicon Valley capital dollars out of 19 billion went to African-American startup tech firms, while a recent Stanford study shows that only 1% of all Latinx businesses in the United States receive venture capital funds. For the racial wealth gap and white supremacy to be reduced, the amount of capital to Black, Indigenous, and people of color businesses in Silicon Valley must be greatly increased. If this is of interest to you, to end this curious formula and bring MLK's beloved community to fruition here in our community, please contact me. I'll get you in touch with the group. And thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. Here's my Gmail.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you very much, Scott. And it's always wonderful to hear when a professor at a university is going beyond academia and trying to translate these values into action and to really go for and encouraging students to not only make but succeed in making changes in our society, at least locally. So thank you again. Our next speaker is Raven Malone. Raven Malone is an electrical engineer, an advocate for social justice, and a community leader. She made it her mission to start real conversations about the lack of equity in our communities. Growing up in the South has taught her just how important work like this is. As she says, she won't stop until it is normalized to see Black people in positions of power and politics. And indeed, she's one of them because she has ran for the Palo Alto City Council and came very close to winning. And I met her in a number of Black Lives Matter protests. So she was carrying that on, while she was running for Palo Alto City Council. And this is what we really need. So Raven.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, first, thank you for having me at this event and allowing me to speak. Thank you, Sharat, for that introduction. So the event that happened at the Capitol last week, I guess we could start there. It only highlighted what we already knew about our country, right? We have an issue when it comes to white supremacy, and the issue is that it still exists and that we're still having to fight against it. And Martin Luther King Jr. fought against it. Angela Davis, I mean, she's right next door in Oakland. And John Lewis, and I mean, the list goes on and on of all these people who fought and protested, and yet we're still having that fight today. And I think that that's something that we really need to talk about, and that's something that people need to discuss more. Why are we still dealing with white supremacy? Why are we still dealing with police brutality? I was actually watching a movie based on the Stanford Prison Project. It's on Amazon Prime. I highly suggest everyone go and watch it. And it just kind of shows how people who are placed in positions of power and they don't have any repercussions, or there's nothing happens if they disobey the law, if they break rules. And that's what we see every day when it comes to our police, especially when it comes at the hands of Black people. I mean, we can't do anything without, for instance, Breonna Taylor. She was at home and she was murdered, and there were no consequences for her murderers. And that's something that happens time and time again, and it kind of makes Black people and brown people feel like our lives are disposable. And I had to talk to my little sister about that, and that's a heartbreaking discussion to have with a little kid. So we need to hold people accountable, especially our local politicians. I highly encourage anyone who's interested in office to run. Especially, you know, city council, they have a lot more power than people think, especially when it comes to our police department. And I mean, qualified immunity, we need to get rid of that. There's just so much work that needs to be done, but we can start by uplifting and encouraging greatness within our own communities, looking at other activists and leaders for social justice encouraged me a lot to get involved. I'm really happy that I did. I want every person of color to feel like they can also be a leader or a part of the social justice movement, or a CEO or a doctor, or run for politics. I recently changed insurance companies and I had to find a new doctor. And I was so disappointed in how long it took me to find a Black doctor in the Bay Area. And I want to know why that is. And not only me, I want more white people to ask why that is. I want more white people who are going into white spaces to ask why people of color aren't also in that room. And until that starts happening, not a lot can happen. I mean, we can't fix a system that we didn't create. And the system's broken. Everyone knows that it's broken. But it's really up to the people who are benefiting from the system the most, the white people who are benefiting from white privilege and things like that, to say, hey, what's going on here? Why aren't there more Black people on our boards when it comes to Fortune 500 companies? And when it comes to, I mean, even housing and looking at homelessness and looking at zoning, there's racial disparity on every level of our community, and we're not doing enough to fix it. The people who can fix it aren't doing enough to fix it. I really hope that with our new president and vice president, I hope to see more change. But also our education system, there's just, the list goes on. We need to stop whitewashing Black history. We need to talk more about things like the massacres that Black people dealt with, the MOVE bombing, Seneca Village. There's so much that we need to do. And I mean, like Sherrod said, I'm not going to stop until we get this work done. So I highly encourage everyone on this call, go home, do research, start having real conversations, especially the white people who are in white spaces, start having real conversations with the people who are in those rooms, because that's how we start change. And my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raven. Yes, it's as has been said in the, so many times in the Black Lives Matter protest, that we need to have these difficult conversations as a nation in order to overcome this legacy of racism. It's so deep seated, but we need to have them. So thank you very much. Our next speaker is Selvaraj. And Selvaraj is a member of the executive committee of the Ambedkar King Study Circle. And recent campaigns he was involved in are the California Proposition 16 affirmative action, and the Proposition 22, which was to roll back labor rights for app-based drivers. And he played an important role in educating the American public on caste and casteism following the Cisco caste discrimination lawsuit. And so I'm sure he'll be happy to tell you more about it. So Silva, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Sharath. Nice introduction. And I'm really honored to be here. Thanks for inviting. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a Baptist minister and a civil rights activist who had a seismic impact on race relations in the United States, beginning in the mid-1950s. Among his many efforts, King headed the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Through his activism and inspirational speeches, he played a pivotal role in ending the legal segregation of African American citizens in the United States, as well as the creation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. A century after emancipation, and after the enactment of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, it should not have been necessary for Martin Luther King Jr. to stage marches in Montgomery, Birmingham, and Selma, and go to jail 30 times trying to achieve civil rights for his people. He had love and concern for all kinds of people, and he sought to address the link between discrimination and poverty and the economic and unemployment problem of all disadvantaged people. When Dr. King visited India in 1959, he went to a school to give a speech. The principal introduced him as a fellow untouchable from the United States of America. King was shocked and feared that he would be referred to as an untouchable. Then he began to think about the reality of lives of the people he was fighting for. In 1913, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, a man born to the bottom of India's caste system, born and untouchable in the central provinces, arrived in New York City from Mumbai. He came to the US to study economics as a graduate student at Columbia, focused on the differences between race, caste, and class. Many decades later, in the summer of 1946, acting on news that Black Americans were petitioning the United Nations for protection as minorities, Ambedkar reached out to the best known African American intellectual of the day, Du Bois. He told Du Bois that he had been a student of African American problem from across the oceans and recognized their common fates. There is so much similarity between the position of the untouchables in India and of the position of the African American in America. Ambedkar wrote to Du Bois that the study of the latter is not only natural but necessary. Du Bois wrote back to Ambedkar to say that he was indeed familiar with him and that he had every sympathy with the untouchables of India. It had been Du Bois who seemed to have spoken for the marginalized in both countries as he identified the double consciousness of their existence. Dr. King and Dr. Ambedkar dedicated their life to fight against the exploitation, atrocities of the marginalized people. Discrimination and harassment are not confined to the particular aspect, but it is pervasive in all spheres of life. Despite the continuous and relentless fight of human rights champions and activists, Now we see a lot of such harassment and discriminatory treatments coming out of the US tech industry, a place that people normally associate with the egalitarianism and a thirst for talent, regardless of color, race, religion, or any other creed. Ms. Wilkerson, in her recently published book, Caste, resonates this by declaring that Dr. Ambedkar is India's Dr. King. You all have heard about the Cisco case, that the lawsuit filed against Cisco on June 30, 2020, of denying an engineer who immigrated from India to the United States professional opportunities, a raise and promotions because he was from a low caste or Dalit background. The lawsuit states that his Indian American managers, Sundar Iyer and Ramana Kompalla, who are described as dominant Brahmin castes, harassed the engineer because of their sense of superiority rooted in the Hindu caste system. And another case, Palantir, a Silicon Valley 20 billion data analytics company with ties to Donald Trump, has agreed to pay $1.7 million to settle a government lawsuit alleging racial discrimination against Asian applicants. This comes at the time of increasing debate about discrimination in the tech industry and weeks after the Department of Labor accused Google of systematically underpaying women. We all know that these discriminations and harassments are just a tip of the iceberg, and we have a long way to go. Martin Luther King Jr., when championing the rights of people of color in the United States in 1960, declared, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Dr. King's unfinished work must truly be our own. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Selva. Thank you very much. Yeah, so this is another area of emerging discrimination. Cost has come to the United States, and it's something that we must face, just as we do discrimination and underprivilege among Black and Brown people. Our next speaker is Reverend Jethro Moore. So Reverend Jethro Moore currently serves as president of the San Jose Silicon Valley NAACP. He is a commissioner on POST, which stands for Peace Officer Standards and Training of the state of California. He's on the Juvenile Justice Commission of Santa Clara County. And he was on the 2020 Census Count Steering Committee and a Valley Water Environmental and Water Resources Committee Vice Chair. He's an active member of Eta Sigma Lambda Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, past co-chair and co-founder of the Black Leadership Kitchen Cabinet, and member of American Leadership Forum 28. So with that, Jethro, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? We have survived the chaos. And when we say chaos to community, we have seen chaos. We have witnessed chaos. And now we must demonstrate to them what community is. I want to first off thank everyone that spoke up tonight, and I might go in reverse order, but Raven, we look forward to you running again for city council in Palo Alto, and we do have our eyes on Palo Alto and some of the racist incidents that have happened here recently. Even still, we want to make sure that Palo Alto understands we are watching, and we have expectations for Stanford University to take Dr. King's papers out of a trailer and actually put them in a sophisticated building that should rightfully house them. Just so, as a Palo Alto project, let's get that going and make sure Stanford puts King's papers in a place of respectability in a building and instead of trailers. To Tamara Hall, I just want to thank you and for your efforts in running and San Jose Unified School District, and we will be on San Jose's Unified School District because they don't want to seem to take police off of campus. So we must get someone in there that understands when people of color say we want something, we're going to get it. And those people that are serving on that board now, let's serve notice to them now that we're coming for them. To Siren, my brothers and sisters in Siren, and I'm not an expert in immigration, but it is so important. And I think one of the first things we need to be talking about in the first 100 days is reuniting all those 500 and some kids who are still separated from their families by the past administration must be a priority, because it takes us back to our sad but so true slave history in this country. For everybody, and for the drummers who came from India, that was something else. And then when we come together like this in the Spirit of King is talking about unity and diversity and bringing everybody back together. And I want to let everyone know that when they say that King would not have approved of Black Lives Matter, or they try to give you that speech, King said, "We will be marching for these and dozen other names and attending rallies without end unless there's a significant and profound change in American life and policy." That's what King said. So King would not tell you not to march. He would not tell you not to do what you do. He would say, keep going and keep on going, because my dream, they've turned into a nightmare, and I need you to take it to the next place. He says, we can't solve our problems unless there is a radical redistribution of income and political power. And that's what this young generation that's here with me today must pick up and understand. That is the goal for tomorrow, to hold them accountable, to make sure that they push. And as we, and my age, it gets kind of rough sometimes, right? America, he said, has been something of a schizophrenic personality, tragically dividing it against herself. So, young people, you guys have to unite us. You have to bring us back. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense or police budgets than on programs of social uplift was approaching a spiritual death. I pronounce to you today, America is spiritually dead. And as we see right now, the churches are struggling within themselves in Christianity, in which my faith is, fighting amongst themselves about what has happened. So, everyone, there's much to do. America's original sin must be dealt with. That sin of slavery and the mistreatment of indigenous people. It must be dealt with. And someone said, where, as the state of California, can we begin to deal with it? I don't think it's such a radical view, but it is a view that I think one that we can start with is Father Juniper Searle, who sits in the House in DC, in the House of Honor. I believe it's time that we offer him up and remove him and move him to the Catholic Museum, which is there in DC. I think they should lead by saying that one way we can make recompense and understanding of what went wrong is to move him gracefully to the Catholic Museum. And some might say, why would that be so hard? Let's just use as an example. Stanford University has removed Juniper Searle off of the campus in 2018. As a matter of fact, if you go down there, there's no longer a Sierra Way, because Stanford recognized the history of what he represented. Not trying to judge the man. I'm just saying, how do we start? How do we start? It's all of us here supporting HR 40 and doing what we can to make sure that bill can get spread or done in this city, in this county, in this state, and across this nation. Lastly, what we can do right here in San Jose State to be sure that nothing like this ever happens again. We must finish the project that some of the students at San Jose State started some 4 or 5 years ago, in which I was invited to be part of, and I'm honored by a Japanese fellow by the name of Jimmy, as he brought me in. Is what we fail to recognize is San Jose State is the first place right there at the Man's Gym where the Japanese citizens were interned. So in order that it doesn't happen again, and we do not allow kids to be separated again in this city, in this county, in this state, is let's put some statues there. Let's raise our own money, petition San Jose State, push San Jose State to the edge to put these statues here, and we will raise the money ourselves and put those statues where the men's gym used to be. We already have the images. We already have everything laid out. Now we just got to petition the president, the student body, and the community, the roller skate group. We can roll around and skate through there, skate around to wherever her new office is, and we'll disrupt the system until we get what we want. So we need to bring all the San Jose bike crew out. We need to bring all the Siren out. All of us merge on San Jose State campus as soon as we get this break and demand, as part of the repentance of San Jose, the city of Santa Clara County, that we begin to put these statues up to say, this happened here. It is a historical fact, and it will never happen here again. And we stand for justice for people of color, and you'll be protected. So you guys, I get emotionally charged, and so I'll be probably drained and sleep very well tonight. But we have something to do. We have something that we can push forward. Young people, I'm going to keep my foot in the door as long as I can. Y'all get in there and disrupt the system and reset it on another course. Y'all are going to be the teachers and the guiding light for my sons. So you must be in place to make this place a better place for all of us, and end all forms of systemic and structural racism that exist in our city, county, state. Move on, onward, as he would say, toward the light. Thank you very much for everyone being here.
Thank you very much, Reverend Moore. So with that, I guess that this is closes the program. I want to thank all the speakers and everyone for attending. I want to say that that this is really what King wanted, is to translate beliefs and values into action. And every one of the speakers today is involved in actions that will transform our society. And so with that, I want to thank you all for coming. And then I think we'll turn it over to Tiffany or Michelle.
Thank you so much, Sharat, and thank you all so much for this uplifting and informative program. I really appreciate all your guest speakers. Thank you so much. I believe that is actually it for today. So yeah, thank you all again for attending. If you could please just fill out our program survey. We appreciate it. And learning if you guys have really enjoyed this program, if there's anything we can do to improve it, and so on. But yeah, I think this was a great informative program, and I too enjoyed the drumming. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, and have a nice night.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Good night.
Good night.